What can you tell us about the timing of the passage of the 2018 budget? How soon can we get the budget passed this time?
Well, for me, since you are saying soon, we want to get it soonest, but that soonest will be determined by a number of factors. The level of response from the MDAs to the various committees. Because before we went on recess, I'm aware that some of the NDAs, when you invite them, they will tell you the chief executive is not around, he has traveled on one project or the other. Or some of them, the ministers are not around. So these are some of the challenges also we had. And I remember I actually had to make a press briefing on this, that these are situations our committees are facing. And so the Nigerian public should be on notice to the fact that, well, we've invited some of these MDAs and they are not responding. So at the end of the day, they have to respond so that the committees can do the due diligence and understand exactly where we are and where we ought to be. So when all of these are put together, I want to believe that give and take, the various committees, and in particular the appropriation committee, will now be in a better, position to say, based on all the work expected, maybe they can now begin to have a projection of the time frame. But let me say that we are working very hard to make sure that it happens soonest.
Can it come as soon as March?
Well, that will be brilliant, and we'll see how far that can take us. But that will be brilliant if that happens.
Let me refer you to a court judgment from Justice Muhammad Idris Court last Friday that has cleared the way for Serap to advance his case against the federal government on the publication of reports of investigation into the allegation of budget padding and the prosecution of indicted officers of the National Assembly. We do understand that the Attorney General of the Federation says there are reports that he may be filing charges against culpable lawmakers based on that budget. Are you aware of this? Is the National Assembly making any move on this one?
Well, let me establish one fact. As far as the work of Parliament is concerned, I don't know what is called budget padding. What comes to the National Assembly in the first instance is a proposal. So since something is a proposal, if there is addition or subtraction, how does that amount to padding? I think these are some of the things we need to understand. What comes to the National Assembly is an estimate. And anything you say is an estimate is not the correct or is not the final, neither is that the approved budget. So I don't know how that we find out. I'm yet to read what you are talking about. But what I know is from the work of Parliament, until and unless a budget is finally approved by the two chambers, because whatever comes from the lower chamber and the upper chamber is now harmonized through conferencing, and we now have the same document that the two chambers are approving. That is when we now say we have a budget. And I think if that is a process, and until we get there, anything that happens in between is the work of the legislature. And for somebody to say in the course of doing our work, because there is addition here or there is subtraction here, amounts to, what do they call it, padding, it means, to my mind, somebody is not understanding what the work of a parliament is. And I think Nigeria is not the only country that has parliamentarians, and I don't think this is applicable in other areas. But after you have passed the budget, if somebody now attempts to come and add something or to do any other thing outside what has been passed, perhaps you can begin to talk about, that word, padding. But for us in the legislature, I don't think that is the case.
The allegation is that the budget of 2016 was padded to the tune of 481 billion by some principal officers of the National Assembly. But let me quickly take you away from that to the comment made by the United States president attributed to him. Well, he's come out to deny it. And a lot of countries in Africa, those who are offended by it, are spoken up. The South African government has spoken up, the Ghanaian president, Botswana government, the African Union has spoken up. Just today, the Foreign Affairs Ministry had also made a summons on the envoy of the United States in Nigeria. how offended could the National Assembly be on some of what has become a series of attacks from the United States president, especially to Nigeria, as some players regarded some citizens of the country as not wanting to return to their huts?
Well, I think, let me say that we are as offended as our citizens. And definitely anything that touches our citizens touches us. So for me, it's an inappropriate language. And unfortunately, that has happened. And of course, every country that is in that particular category, will feel offended. For me, I think, by and large, this is the season to apply this statement that says there's a time to speak your mind and there's a time to mind your speech. I think the kind of crisis we're having now requires that we try to refrain from using words that are vulgar, from using words that are derogatory, because they only fan the embers of enmity and create far more crisis that the world can tolerate. So I think leaders have to really be very sensitive to some of these things. We have enough crises in our hand already, and I think we should be making more effort to resolve some of these crises than creating more with our tongue. I think we need to refrain.
All right.
Nigerians definitely are offended, and I feel offended equally.
All right. We will close the program, but I wanted to give a reaction to this just in about less than a minute so that we can just close the show. Pastor Tunde Bakare had rated the government of Buhari as failing, especially in some of the major programs of the government. You are a senior officer of your party, the ruling party, APC, and when a statesman like Pastor Tunde Bakare comes forward to say, in all of the things that your party has promised Nigerians, that you have failed in it or you are failing in it, how would your party receive that? Are you worried about this? Just in about less than a minute, if you may react to this, Senator.
Well, first let me say Pastor Tunde Bakare is totally entitled to his opinion, and he has expressed his opinion. As far as I'm concerned, APC has not failed. The number of years we have spent looking at the gargantuan problems and challenges we met on the ground, I think we are doing very well in trying to get Nigeria back on track. We are not saying that we couldn't have done more. Everybody who is faced with every challenge could have done better. But then what we have done so far, I think, is within the context of the situation we find ourselves, and we have done very well. From an economy that went into recession, now we are on an economy that is looking forward to growth with the external reserve looking good and the economy bouncing back. And some of these challenges will definitely give way very soon.
All right.
And I want to say that let's all put our hands together. We in the National Assembly, we are more than prepared to give our own contribution as we have always done.
We must go now.
That this government succeed, and we will continue to do that.
Senator Sabi Abdullahi, spokesperson of the Senate, thank you so much for your time on the program. And that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for being part of it. I'm Sean Kimbale. Bye-bye.